we upgraded our equipment, so this panel is going to get better equipment, we hope. So no more interference, we hope. Welcome back. It's District 5 now, and we have Supervisor Dave Potter and candidate Mary Adams. And we're going to run the show pretty much the same way, 2-minute opening statements. We're going to alternate after that with questions, and who gets the question first. 1-minute questions, a few of them are 2 minutes answers, and then we're going to do closing statements. We're going to do this within, like clockwork, within an hour. And Regina,
all right.
you're up next.
All right. Welcome everyone. So,
Actually, we're going to do opening.
yes, we are going to do opening statements. We will start in alphabetical order. So, 1 minute for opening statements, Ms. Adams. Oh, you have to go mic. 2 minutes. 2 minutes. 2 minutes. Like clockwork. 2 minutes.
Yeah.
So,
I'll hold it up at 20 seconds.
Good. Hello, thank you for being here this evening. My name is Mary Adams, and I'm so accustomed to saying President and CEO of United Way Monterey County that it's hard for me to stop and say, no. I'm a candidate for the Monterey County Board of Supervisors, District 5, and very pleased and honored to be able to do so. People ask me often as I go through the neighborhoods, precinct walking and at meet and greets, why are you doing this? And I must admit, it was a very difficult decision to come to the conclusion that I needed to run for the Monterey County Board of Supervisors. But what I found is, as I was getting toward retirement from United Way, I was thinking, so what am I going to do with the rest of my life? I could either continue doing what I was doing in some form of public service, kind of not liking the way I saw things going within the county, standing on the outside and just looking in, or I could make the big leap, step in, roll up my sleeves, and decide to do something from the inside. And that's what I've chosen to do. I think there are a lot of things that we do well at the county, but I also think that there are many things that we could do better. My entire career has been based on public service, and I'm finding that this opportunity is one just to serve my community in another way, in a deeper way, and in, I think, sometimes a far more meaningful way. Throughout the 14 years that I served as president of United Way, I was able to see many, many good things in our county. I was also able to see things that aren't so good throughout the county, and those are the kinds of things that I want to look at. I also found that through the work that I was able to do at United Way, we succeeded tremendously. We succeeded tremendously because we were able to pull together large groups of people to work collaboratively to come to greater good because we all circled together. And that's what I'd like to do at the county level. I think there have been too many closed door meetings. I think there have been too many opportunities missed where people could come together, and that's what I'd like to see happen. Thank you.
My turn. All right, so I'm Dave Potter, and I think most of us know each other, so I'm not going to take a lot of time talking about my record. I'm going to talk about what, to me, it means to be a Democrat. I come from Boston. I think we all know Boston's been kind of a heartland of revolution and issues, and how do we make change happen. And so when I was in Boston, my mother took me when I was 10 years old. I'm from a small town on the South Shore of Boston. When I was 10 years old, my mother started taking me to town hall meetings, where it takes 300 people to convene a quorum to get a town agenda passed and a budget passed for that town. It's still that way today, and up until a few years ago, my mother will be 99 in May, went to those meetings to make sure that that governmental system operated well. You know, as I said, you know, Boston's a heartland of activity. I grew up in the 50s and the 60s. Civil rights issues were something that we fought real hard to make sure there was equality for all people of all color. And we had to deal with the breakup of segregation. We had to deal with the issues of busing. Boston was the front line of those issues. Women's rights issues, which we still fight for these days, are still something that the community cares about nationally, and it's the Democrats that push that agenda forward. In 1968, when I was in college, I marched on Washington, D.C. to make sure that we understood that the Vietnam War was a war that didn't have a definition. We've entered into some of those phrases these days, and I have to tell you, entering into combat without definition of victory is not somewhere I think we ought to be going, and I think that's something the Democratic Party realizes. When I first got on the board, and Vince, I think you and a couple other here, people may well remember the names Matt Friday and Bruce Carlson. When I was first on the Board of Supervisors, I was asked to carry a resolution proclaiming Gay Pride Week as an issue that was important to this community. That issue, that important issue then passed at the Board of Supervisors on a 3-2 vote. The three people that supported it was myself, Simone Salinas, and Edith Johnson. The two people who didn't support it were Junie Pennycook and Tom Perkins. We were Dems, we stood up, we still stand up, and that battle's not over. There's other areas where we need to push forward, but I want to say, when I've marched on picket lines, when I've stood up for labor, when I've stood up for equality, I've done it because I'm a Democrat. I don't have to be a county supervisor to be a Democrat, and I don't dem up to run for the Board of Supervisors. Thank you.
All right, thank you. So the first three questions are 1 minute, and if at any time you need me to repeat the question, please ask. Ms. Adams, so we'll start with you for the first question. In 2014, in Monterey County, 1 in 4 children grew up in poverty. Has the Board of Supervisors, in your opinion, done enough to address this issue? What would you do to work towards a reduction?
I think if the Board of Supervisors and our entire community was doing enough so that there were fewer children in poverty, we wouldn't have 7,170 homeless kids in the school districts of Monterey County. It's pretty shocking. Much of it has to do not with kids who are living in motels or in their cars, but a lot of it has to do with kids who are living in marginalized housing, housing that is fit for one family, and it's instead housing 4 or 5 families. I think that's a very serious issue. I can tell you what I've done to address that issue. I co-chaired the 10-year plan to end homelessness. We worked very hard to ensure that the kids started off on the right foot. I could probably go on for quite a long time about some of the successes we had with programs like Stuff the Bus that gave homeless kids a brand new backpack, but I don't think I've got enough time because I see the wrap it up sign.
So I think that's an excellent question, and I'm proud of the fact that Fernando Armenta today at the Board of Supervisors asked it to be a presentation by the Social Services Department on what is the homeless situation in Salinas. If we look at what the city of Salinas is suggesting that happened to those that live in Chinatown, that encampment that exists there has to be another solution other than eviction and demolishing their structures that are their residents at this time. There's an opportunity for better collaboration, better partnerships, and better outreach into the community. But simply dislocating those people, removing them from the areas that they're living is not the solution. And I can tell you that you don't have to look to the city of Salinas. You can look on the streets of Monterey, you can look throughout this community, and homelessness is an issue that I'm proud to see my colleagues on the Board of Supervisors aggressively addressing, but realizing that it's not something we're going to do alone. You can't just throw money at it. You've got to partner, and you've got to figure out how to best use your resources.
All right, thank you. Supervisor Potter, this question begins with you. Land use decisions in Monterey County for decades have been described as battles between those who want to protect the environment on one side and those who want to protect jobs on the other. How do you see it? What are smart land use decisions for you?
I don't know if it's necessarily those that see it as anything other than what are we going to do to preserve the environment that we live in here. If we stretch our resources too far, if we overuse our water, if we continue to impact traffic, if we go ahead and deteriorate the quality of life for those of us that live here, I think we're doing a disservice to the environment and to this community. But I will say that the issue of affordable housing is one that we need to aggressively address. I'm proud of what I did when I was with the city of Monterey as we moved projects forward throughout the city that offered opportunities for first buy and retention of home ownership. I also will say that I voted against every project that I ever thought had a negative impact on the environment, but I've also supported the projects that have had the kind of reuse and revitalization that we're talking about. East Garrison project would be my #1 project that actually has a town center, an arts district, parks and recreational facilities, and is located close to existing infrastructure.
Excuse me. Ms. Adams, land use decisions in Monterey County for decades have been described as battles between those who want to protect the environment on one side and those who want to protect jobs on the other. How do you see it? What are smart land use decisions for you?
I think smart land use decisions begin with smart people sitting down and talking together. I think it's really a shame that we tend to find so much litigation here in the county because of an inability of those two, but could be considered boring factors, but I don't like those words. But those two factors, just not being able to come together to take a look at what's really in the best interest for the county and all of the people who live here. One of the things that I worry about is decisions being made that might provide short-term, low-income, unbenefited jobs at the expense of really taking a little bit more time and looking far out into the future to see what we can do to actually work with land use issues that will allow to have stronger careers for people so that we can have kids come back after college, be able to raise their families here, buy a home, and that we would end up having the multi-generational families that really are what make a community thrive.
All right, thank you. And Ms. Adams, question number 3 is for you to begin with. What is your position on fracking in Monterey County?
My understanding is that fracking doesn't exist in Monterey County. I think science shows at this point that fracking isn't a great idea, and that's pretty much how I feel about it.
So I'm not a proponent of fracking at all. I think it has a variety of negative impacts, both environmentally and socially. And I'm curious as to why there's such an aggressive campaign on the part of the oil industry to go ahead and object to anything that they allege is not going on in this county. If fracking's not going on, why are they spending so much campaign money against an initiative that's against fracking? I've proposed that if this isn't an issue, there should be a moratorium then on fracking. If you're not going to do it, then why are you opposed to a moratorium on it? I find that extremely suspicious of that industry, which I'm supportive of as long as it works within the confines of its existing limits. But expanding into fracking, I think, has too many environmental and social impacts that I'm certainly not going to support.
Thank you. All right, question number 4 is a 2-minute question. So Supervisor Potter, we start with you. 2 minutes. Actually, the next 2 questions, you need to get 2 minutes. Monterey County is projecting a $16 million budget deficit for next year. If you are re-elected, A, what positions would you try to save or cut? B, what avenues would you pursue to increase revenues to the county?
So I've been through several budget cycles, both boom and bust, and that's the nature of the economy. Every 10 years, we go into a decline and eventually we recover. I'm proud of the fact that over that period of time, we've lost no jobs, we've been able to preserve jobs, we've been able to provide essential services. I think as we go into this cycle, this is a preliminary announcement of what we see as problems where there may be economic shortfalls. And I'm proud of the departments and labor having come together, sat down and said, okay, here's how we're going to deal with these issues. When I first got on the Board of Supervisors, every department was siloed and all they did was protect their own individual resources. They didn't share, they didn't collaborate. You didn't see social services working with the Department of Health. You didn't see the Ag Commissioner offering to help out in areas where he had extra money to participate with. We've been able to work with labor over the course of time to address these issues. I don't take a fear tactic approach to this where the sky is falling and we're in economic collapse. We've actually done very, very well as a county. One of the areas where I think there is revenue to be had, and I think we need to take it seriously, is in the world of the cannabis ordinance and the possible regulations that are around that. There's an opportunity for new revenues, whether it's a business license, whether it's a business tax, whether it's a general tax, that will go ahead and provide us additional revenues. Let's face it, medicinal marijuana is already legal, and my speculation is that when it hits the ballot in November, the recreational marijuana would be legal. Do we want to sit on the back and wait and see what the ramifications are of that? Or do we want to get on the front end of it, capture those revenues before we lose them to the state? I say capture those revenues, use them for the opportunities that we need to go ahead and provide better services for the citizens of Monterey County.
Thank you. I think if you look at $16 million as the shortfall, it's a huge amount of money. It's a lot of money to me, I'm sure. But it's also, when you look at it, it's just about 1 or 2% of the entire budget. And I think the first question I would ask is, why is there a budget shortfall in the first place? Were things not going so well in the back room? Were things, why was the budget not balanced in the first place? When I was CEO of United Way, every year we would do a balanced budget. That's all there was to it. And I think one would need to ask the question, why is there a shortfall? But secondly, when you look at a shortfall, if you really want to just deal with the 12 months that you have that you're looking at, then I think you need to take a look at what you can do to resolve that shortfall. And I know at United Way, when we had a tough year, what we would do things like freeze the salaries of the top end people so that there were no salary increases, so that there would be a way for the rank and file employees to ensure that they did not have any cuts to their benefits or anything like that. I think that's one thing that we would do. But if you wanted to look really at what could we do to bring additional revenue in, I think that we need to look at, again, look at the front end of the community. Let's look at what we can do to invest appropriately in ensuring that kids, especially 0 to 3, when the most part of their brain development takes place, let's take a look at what we can do there. What investments should we be making so that when kids enter school, they're ready to learn, that when children are in daycare, they have enough places in daycare and enough really high-quality daycare places that children can go, so that we end up with a well-educated workforce, because a well-educated workforce really will draw additional business to our community. I think that long-term approach to many things in our county is lacking. I think there's an absence of leadership that doesn't allow that long-term approach. Thanks.
Thank you. Question number 5 is also 2 minutes for both of you, and Ms. Adams, we'll give this one to you first. Monterey County government is the largest employer in the county with about 4,000 employees. How do you ensure as a member of the board that its many agencies operate effectively? And what would you do to ensure a high level of performance?
Again, I keep going back to my own experience as someone who ran multiple not-for-profit organizations, not-for-profit businesses. And one of the main things that you have to do, of course, is to ensure that you've got a really terrific workforce. And you do that in a variety of different ways. You don't just ensure that you recruit the best employees, train them well, ensure that they have good benefits so they stay, but you also have to make sure that there are processes in place where they know what the expectations are. You have to have performance evaluations, you have to have goals, you have to be able to follow up on all of those performance objectives, goals, to ensure that the employees know what is expected of them. That constant feedback is really important. Communication is a key part of ensuring that business, whether it's government business, not-for-profit business, or public corporate business, you have to ensure that there's communication at that top level too, so that people know what's expected of them and they know and get the feedback to ensure that they are kept on point so that they can go well. We do have a really strong and a really wonderful workforce at the county. I've had the opportunity to interact with so many people, the department heads and the rank and file as well, and it's always a pleasure to see people who are so dedicated to the work that they're doing, and it's not easy. When I meet and talk with people from the Department of Social Services particularly, they have some of the hardest jobs that anybody could ever imagine. It would just be so difficult and heartbreaking every day to have to do the work that the people who work in that department do. But I think, again, they know what their job is. If they are communicated what's needed of them, what they have to achieve, then I think we'll do well all the way up and down the line. So, thanks.
So you are right, there is an extremely large workforce. We're almost 5,000 people. We're $1.2 billion budget. And what we expect is a high level of performance out of all departments. One of the things I'm proudest about in my office is the fact that we work on a daily basis with every single office in the county. We know the department heads, we know the employees, and we have a relationship where if there is a level of lack of performance, we're able to articulate that to the department head. Today I spent an incredibly long period of time going through the employee direct hire evaluations of 2 department heads. Board of Supervisors only hires and fires 5 individual directors. The rest of them are hired by the CAO, the administrative officer. We, however, sat down today and reviewed the performance evaluation of the Water Resources Agency General Manager and the CEO of Natividad Hospital. Now, if there was 2 more controversial areas in government at this time, whether it's locally or nationally, I would say it's in the world of water and it's in the world of healthcare. And when we sit down and look at what's gone on at Natividad, I'm incredibly proud of the turnaround that's occurred there, where most county hospitals in the state of California, in fact, all of them, except Natividad, operate in the red. We have a profitable hospital that is a trauma-designated hospital that is on the front edge of health care this day, in this county, in this state, and in this country. And when we look at implementation of the Affordable Care Act, you better realize that Natividad is well positioned to do that. With water resources, Tom Moore, you know well, there is no more controversial topic than water. It's a valued resource, it's incredibly precious. The CAO, the General Manager's responsibility at the Water Resources Station is critical, but it's controversial. We hold those people accountable as our direct hires, and I thought it very odd that a few years ago we were criticized for having too many performance evaluations for the direct hires of the Board of Supervisors. I think you need to have, as Mary said, more evaluations, more accountability, and the understanding that you've got a job, you got to do it, or we're going to make sure somebody else does it.
All right, well then this is a timely question. Supervisor Potter, we begin with you, and you get 2 minutes again for this question. What is the Board of Supervisors' role in resolving the water crisis in Monterey County? How should it be resolved, and what will you do, what have you done to build consensus?
So I think we know we're a county divided, and we're divided by the Salinas River. Quite frankly, the peninsula has its water shortage issues, which are related to the overpumping of the Carmel River and the overpumping of the Seaside Aquifer. In the Salinas Valley, we have the Salinas Valley and the Salinas River. We have 2 dams on the river, and we have an agricultural community that really doesn't want to be terribly candid about what that resource looks like, nor do they want to share the knowledge they have on that resource. The state passed a Groundwater Sustainability Act just recently, which was, in my mind, a serious lack of courage on the state's level and a passing on of an incredibly controversial down to the local level, so that us at the local level are supposed to go out and start regulating groundwater pumping. There is nothing more sacred to the agricultural community than the protection of their water rights. But the Board of Supervisors has been tasked with the responsibility of implementing that state order without the fiscal resources to do so. I and Supervisor Salinas are an ad hoc committee to go ahead and connect the valley with the peninsula to start looking at regional solutions, global solutions to our water problems. I actually was a very strong proponent of the original regional desal project that was a partnership of the Water Resources Agency, Marina Coast Agency, and the Monterey Peninsula Water Management District and CalAM. I thought that was a good project, but it fell apart for a variety of inappropriate reasons. I don't think anybody realized the level of interaction that was going on with one of the members of the Water Resources Agency. But I think we are on the cusp of solving these problems, and I'm extremely excited about the Pure Water Monterey project, which is the first project since we actually created the Pollution Control Agency that's partnered with the Salinas Valley to bring water to the peninsula and help seawater intrusion in the Salinas Valley. Those are new steps forward. I'm excited about them, and I think we made a lot of progress.
You know, I think when you think about the county being divided, you think of the term the lettuce curtain, and I must say that I think we're only divided if we choose to be divided. And I think the only way that we can deal with our water issues is if we do not look upon our situation as the Salinas situation and the Monterey situation, but if we view the entire county and actually the region as one. I think, you know, water is something that we all have to have, and I think we need to be joined to be able to really deal with it. I think for myself, I like to view the portfolio approach to water. I think we have to continue to work as hard as we can on conservation, and I know at this point some of us have started to take a few more showers a week than we used to when there wasn't any rain. I think that it's absolutely important for us to ensure that we really keep focused on conservation. Again, we have to ensure that the aquifers are filled, that the groundwater is captured, and I agree as well that I think it's important to look at the the wastewater project, the reclaimed water. It's worked well in places in small amounts in both Pebble Beach and also in Pacific Grove, and I think that that's something that's really terrific, and I like to see that expanded. I also think we need to have desal, and I think it's really too bad that it was derailed so that we have not gotten to the place where we need to be yet. Continually, there have been issues around desal that have set us back. But I think now there are 3 options on the table. I think we need to see which one can get to the finish line first. I think it's important to look at a desal approach that will be cost effective, that will also be environmentally friendly, and something that isn't going to completely just break the back of the ratepayers. That's one of the most important things that I think matters to me, is you look at what we can do with water. Thanks.
All right, and we go back to our 1-minute questions. And Ms. Adams, this one is for you to begin with. Monterey County is one of the least affordable places to live in the nation, and places of work and affordable housing are often far apart. In very concrete terms, what would you do to make housing more affordable or to reduce the length of commutes in Monterey County?
I think obviously that's a terrific question, and if I had a magic bullet, that would be the first thing that I would want to fix. But I think just looking at the situation, I've talked with so many different people within each of the cities, looking at infill opportunities that exist, really trying to reduce the carbon footprint of people having to drive to work from faraway distances. I think we need to be more strategic in the kinds of development that we look at, only where there is already existing infrastructure, where there's plenty of water, where there is plenty of, where it doesn't have a big impact on traffic. I think those are a few of the things that we have to do when we look at developing housing, and jobs have to be completely connected so that people don't have to drive so far to get to work, and when the jobs are not paying enough for them to, it's not that they're not paying enough, it's just that people have to drive so far to get to their jobs that they aren't able to spend enough time with their families. I think that's just really tragic. I'd love to start to work in a creative way to come to some ideas around that.
So I've always advocated for projects that are close to existing services. I think you end up constantly in a social debate about whose backyard you're going to put that in. I mean, you've got a challenge right now in the city of Pacific Grove. The Pebble Beach affordable housing component for their development project puts a affordable housing project close to services, close to an existing neighborhood. Somewhere along the line, some neighborhoods have got to stand up and say, these aren't other people, these are our people. We're not a segregated community. We are all one fabric, and we have to work together. I've been constantly advocating for the development of communities that are close to existing services, that are infill projects, and I've made a real strong effort over the course of time in a higher level of affordability in projects. I looked to the earlier development phases of Fort Ord, where Sam Farr championed the need for a higher level of affordability at Fort Ord. He wanted 100%. We pushed for 50%, and we increased that threshold for affordability at Fort Ord. I think, frankly, that makes a big difference, and it's a social responsibility we have to make sure that we aren't the elitist community that only allows housing where we want it, when we want it.
Thank you. Another 1-minute question, and Supervisor Potter, we begin with you. Monterey County Democrats have declared it an explicit goal to increase the number of women in elected office. The Board of Supervisors currently has only 1 woman. Why should we not support the female candidate in this race?
Well, I think that's a great question, and I think it begs a bigger question of diversity as a whole. I pride myself on the diversity that I exemplify with my office. Every single every single male supervisor has a male chief of staff. Every single female supervisor, of which there is only one, has an entire female staff. My chief of staff, and I am a male, is a woman, and has always been a woman in my office. Jody Parsons, Kathleen Lee forever. Her assistant is a woman, Jane Mohammadi, and we work very well, and that has nothing to do with gender. Traditionally, your front seat at the office is the secretary. My secretary is Hispanic male. If you look at Jane's office, it's all women and they're all white. If you look at my colleagues on the board that are Hispanic, their team is all Hispanic. Supervisor Phillips has a male assistant. His front desk is operated by a woman. I do, I think, an excellent job at providing diversity in my workplace, and my workplace is the first place I go to work at.
Well, I'm completely supportive of that tenet. I think actually that I really believe the comment that Supervisor Parker made earlier. It's something that's well known within scientific fact, that when 30% or more of a governing body are women, there is a different dynamic around decision making. And whether that's a corporate board, a governmental board, a board of directors, a not-for-profit board, that's proven fact. And I think one of the reasons that there is that different dynamic is that women come to the table ready to find a solution. Women don't come to the table with, I win, you lose. Women come to the table really working together to try to come with as great a vision and responsible long-term planning than I think men tend to do. Women see the outcomes a little bit more clearly at times than men. I love men, but I think it's time to have an additional woman on the Monterey County Board of Supervisors.
Thank you, Ms. Adams. And now this is a 2-minute question, and we'll give this one to you first. Do you have any proposals to stimulate economic development in Monterey County?
I think it goes back to the comment that I made earlier about education. I really firmly believe that if we have a well-educated community, that people will want to bring their businesses here. I think that's number one. And as I mentioned earlier, I believe that the way to do that is start children at the very beginning. You see little things on a United Way program called Success by 6 on television frequently, where it shows a parent reading to a child, and even if the parent doesn't know how to read, simply holding a book with the child lets the child know that this is an important thing, reading is important, and that starts to stimulate learning at a very, very early age. I also think when we look at job development, economic opportunities, economic development here in the county, we should build on what we have. Looking at the two major entities that we have of agribusiness and hospitality. I also think looking at the third entity that we have, education, that is another one that we should build on as far as really developing new and creative approaches. I like what I see over in Salinas with the Ag Tech Institute. And for years, every year I would go and I would meet with this man who was president of one of the local ag companies. And each year it was just like this great tutorial. He would talk to me about what was happening within ag for the past year. And he would tell me about these terrific ideas that would come from the workers that he had, that the workers brought forward, that they were starting to implement technological advances that were happening because people who were picking the crops saw better ways of doing it. And the ownership of the company was so savvy that they were able to take those good ideas and then put them into action. And I think that's true on the hospitality side as well. We really need to work with the people who are doing the work and encourage that entrepreneurial spirit to take good ideas and bring them to fruition. That's what I want to see in our county. I want to see that jobs go from low-wage, non-benefited jobs to careers.
So, under the heading of what have we done, long ago I realized that too many inappropriate development proposals were coming before the county and had no understanding of whether that was an acceptable proposal or whether it was just a foot that didn't fit in that shoe. And so I probably, when the redevelopment agencies vanished and were taken away by the state, we had no tool to go ahead and deal with the developmental community to say your proposal is appropriate or inappropriate. So I encouraged, and we subsequently developed, the Economic Development Department, which is an opportunity for anybody who's looking to do business in Monterey County to get a first check on whether you're appropriate for this area and to be alerted as to where you may or may not fit into this community. As a public outreach opportunity, as as an adjunct to that new department, I encouraged, and we did create the Economic Opportunities Commission, which is a board that represents all three legs of our economy: the agriculture community, the tourism community, and the educational and research community, to go ahead and say, here's the opportunities with these pillars that we see where you may or may not fit in here. When somebody comes in and says, I think we need another golf course on the Monterey Peninsula, that's not something we're going to say you need. But I think you have to realize that the Monterey Peninsula is an incredibly attractive place to do business, but you have to look at ultimately at the carrying capacity of the peninsula. We said we wouldn't build on prime ag. We said we wouldn't build on the coast. We did say there were economic opportunities to rebuild at Fort Ord, to put back some of the 35,000 jobs that lived out there. I'm a proponent of making sure that that reuse plan is respected and implemented, while all the time making sure that the environment is protected throughout Monterey County.
All right, thank you. And Supervisor Potter, this one is for you. We go back to our 1-minute questions. Monterey County government has repeatedly come under criticism for lack of transparency. What steps have you taken to increase transparency in government?
So I think, transparency is kind of a contemporary buzzword that works well for people who don't feel that their issues are getting addressed, and I will be very, very pleased to say I've always prided myself on my office being open to anybody, anywhere, anytime. The 5th District is an incredibly demanding constituency. They expect the best service anytime, anywhere, and they want it right away. And I will say that we've had for many years a program on Mondays where you have an issue, you don't need an appointment, you can drop in and we'll talk about your issues if it's pressing. But I can tell you that there is no shortage of issues in the 5th District. If Brian can't take care of you at the front desk, you've got a problem. If Kathleen and Jane have got an issue you can't resolve, then I'm there on a regular basis to take care of whatever it is you need. There is no office that is as transparent as our office is, and I'm extremely proud of it.
I think that accessibility and transparency are two different things. I don't think transparency is just a current buzzword. I think it's something that you either have and you use it and through your life and how you approach decisions and how you approach people and how you communicate with people. I think it's more than an open door. I think transparency really is involving more people in the decisions. Transparency involves putting out the thought and then gathering others around so that they see exactly where they're going. I believe we have greater success in whatever our effort is when more people are brought into the decision-making process. And that's done through transparency. If people have to jump through so many hurdles to get to the facts, it makes it very difficult, and that's not a transparent approach. So I believe that transparency is an instinctive thing that you have, and that I think it's absolutely mandatory that government is transparent, because that's what people need, that's what people deserve. It's not just what they want.
Thank you. And this is going to be our last question, 1 minute, and then we'll go to our 1-minute closing statements. So Ms. Adams, we'll start with you for this last question, the bonus question. In Santa Cruz County, campaign contributions are limited to $200 per donor. In Monterey County, there is no limit. As a result, the average Board of Supervisor race in Santa Cruz County costs $20,000, and in Monterey County, 10 times more. Do you think campaign contributions should be capped? What would you do to limit them?
Santa Cruz has some great people on their Board of Supervisors. I don't think that they have been hurt at all by having a cap on campaign contributions. I think it's something that we definitely have to look at here in Monterey County. When I go through and see how much money is being spent on campaigns, how much money we have to raise, I look at all of the people and all of the things that I saw us do through United Way and through virtually any other project. And I realize how much good the money that we are spending on campaign consultants, television, look at what we're seeing throughout the country, not just here in our county. What a waste when it could be just spent on doing better for people. I think that it's an important project for us, and it's something that I would really, really be interested in looking at.
So the last time I ran, once the election was over, I made an effort to say we need campaign finance reform in Monterey County. That was met with some criticism because I just won and I was trying to handicap everybody else. I found that a little hypocritical. I pushed back on that, but as people came forward in the process, it was looked as a way to handicap contenders and benefit incumbents because incumbents had the daily bully pulpit. I don't believe that at all, and I would be happy to advance an agenda that said we need campaign finance reform across all sectors, not just the Board of Supervisors. I mean, if you take a look at what it costs actually to become a city councilman in some of these small jurisdictions, it's shocking, and it shouldn't be that way. I think if we had a global discussion about what those limitations should be, and I think it would be better probably if it was brought forward by a neutral third party than by an elected, but I'm happy to side with whoever wants us to take on that campaign. Ron Cheshire was the champion of it the last time, and I told Ron very clearly, I'd be happy to do whatever you want, but I need allies in that, and I think they're out there, we just need to have them come forward.
All right, thank you. And now closing statements, 1 minute each. Ms. Adams, we'll start with you.
Thank you. You know, sitting here in this Democratic headquarters and looking at all the signs that are around are very pleasing to me. I've been a lifelong Democrat, and I can remember being a little girl, I was probably about 8, going to the all-wool, yard-wide Democratic Club of Louisville, Kentucky. And I still have very fond memories of the community feeling that we had when we would go to these events. It was always sort of like a party. People would sing and there would be music and it was just terrific. And that has stayed with me all my life, and I'm really very thankful for that. But the thing that I'm really looking at the most is Monterey County Democrats, change that matters. And I think it's time for change, and I think that matters. I think that there is time for some new vision. I think it's time for a new approach to problem solving. And I think I'm the person that can bring that change. I hope I get your endorsement. I would appreciate it very much, and I thank you for listening to me.
So as the incumbent, I'm used to criticism. I want to be real clear. There's no team that's more effective than the team that I have in my office. We get out every day and we have private lives. We have kids we have to take to school. We have family issues we have to take care of. We have family members that we love and care about and want to spend more time with. But when Kathleen has to take kids to school, she has to take them to football practice, she has to go to a Parks District meeting, and then she has to take care of me, that's a commitment that I don't expect on a regular basis. We're a team, and we get up every day to serve the 5th District and Monterey County as a whole. This team has taken a long time to come to be what it is. I'm proud of what we are. I think we excel in service. We're all in my office proud to be Dems. I appreciate the support I've had in the past. I'd appreciate it in the future. And I want to tell you, there's still a lot of work to be done, whether it's water, whether it's transportation, or whether it's social and equality issues. We got a lot to do as residents of Monterey County. We got a lot of work to do as Democrats. It's unfortunate that we have 2 Dems against each other versus a Republican that we could really pick on. Thank you.
Well, some may describe this as a curse when you have Democrats running against Democrats. But it's also a blessing, right? We cannot lose. We have good candidates. We have 7 Democrats running for 3 seats.
8.
At this time, is it 8?
The young milk.
No, I counted them.
7.
Number 7. So we really can't lose in the end. But and the good debate, a good healthy debate, is obviously good for democracy. So I want to thank the candidates for running, for coming here, for sharing their views. I want to thank all of you for being here. Just a little word about what's going to happen next. We've got some video. We're going to share that. Some people couldn't make it tonight. They're going to be able to see that as well. We have one more forum next Monday in the Teamsters Hall in Salinas for District 1. And on Tuesday, we have a regular meeting where we debate all sorts of issues, including the endorsement. And then we'll make announcements very quickly.
It is
It is 8, okay.
Yes.
3 in District 1, 3 and 4 and 2.
Okay, all right, so it is 8, okay. Stand corrected. Thank you all for coming, and thank you.